Hello everybody and welcome back to the F5 Studios channel. In today's episode, the second episode of the podcast here on F5 Studios, we are going to be discussing all four of our Chinese Grand Prix predictions and sprint predictions. The top three for all three of them, qualifying in the race as well. We're going to skip the sprint qualifying because that is just a little bit irrelevant and it's going to take up a lot of time. So yeah, we're really looking forward to this video. I hope that everyone can enjoy our opinions and obviously leave a comment about your own predictions in the comments below. Yeah, we're going to get right into it. And if you do enjoy this channel and the first episode of the podcast, please feel free to subscribe and like the video, obviously. And yeah, in the video we're just going to be discussing, as I've already said, our predictions, but also a quick news roundup of the latest news in motorsport, as well as a summary of our Australian predictions before we start. So let's jump right in.
Thank you for the intro, Jack. So hello everyone and welcome back to the F5 Studios podcast. I am Lewis and I will be your host this week, and today we are looking ahead to the Chinese Grand Prix, which also brings us our first sprint weekend of the Formula 1 season. But before we get into China, we have to talk about the season opening in Australia. The Australian Grand Prix kicked off with plenty of drama, big performances, and our first real look at the pecking order for the 2026 season. Some teams looked exactly as strong as expected, like Mercedes. Ferrari were probably quicker than expected, while others have definitely have some work to do heading into the next round. So today we'll break down what we learned from Australia and what we expect heading into the China sprint race, and of course give our predictions for all that is upcoming. Now, Robbo, do you want to tell us what you thought of the Australian Grand Prix?
Yeah, well, I think the Australian Grand Prix was exactly what it said in the tin. The car is absolutely incredible. This is what the era before was meant to be. I think this is some of the closest racing we've seen in years. Activero and boost and overtake mode was incredible. A great example of that battle being Charles Leclerc and George Russell at the start of the race. I think they had like 7 lead changes at one point. It was back and forward battles between the two of them. That's exactly what we want to see. I mean, right at the end, Russell saying in the post interviews that he kept him on his toes. Leclerc, he really kept him on his toes. But eventually Mercedes did pull off the pace. I think that's one issue with the regulations, however, is maybe when you're not in the battle, you're in no man's land, especially Verstappen and Norris, who were a bit further behind and had a bit of a shocker. But I think that's it for the Australian Grand Prix. Not much more to be said. Hopefully we get a better look at the cars this weekend in China.
Thanks very much, Robbo. So anyone got anything else to add on what they thought of the first race this F1 2026 season? I presume not, so I think we're going to head straight on to the predictions here for the sprint race. Is everyone happy to move on to the sprint race predictions?
Yeah, happy. Yeah, I'm alright. Happy.
So, going into the sprint race, we probably are going to say Mercedes are the quickest, and we've got probably Ferrari and McLaren not far behind them, and then Red Bull maybe just a little bit further off. So, for my P3, we're going to do P3 for the sprint race, the main race qualifying, and the main race, all top three. So, for my P3, in the sprint race, who was my biggest flop of last week's race, which I don't think worked out, I'm going to go for Lewis Hamilton in P3. On to Jack.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be Charles Leclerc because we saw his pace in the first round and I think he'll be up there once again.
Robin
And I'm going to go with Max Verstappen. Not a shocker, but I'm going to go with him.
Ruben now?
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Jack here. I'm gonna go Charles Leclerc P3. Like, you know, he got the pace, but maybe not quite winning pace.
So now moving on to P2, I'm going for the other Ferrari who showed some brilliant pace in the last race in Australia. I'm going Charles Leclerc in P2.
Yep, so it's time for my P2, and it might be a little bit of a surprise to some people, but I've gone for Lewis Hamilton in second. We saw his pace in the sprint race last year, and I think that he'll keep that up, but he won't be as fast as Russell.
And I'm going to carry the theme of Ferrari in P2 with Charles Leclerc. Great pace from him in Australia. And hopefully he can carry it.
And I'm going to screw you all over. I'm going to go P2 Max Verstappen. Like, incredible comeback in Australia. So, yeah, great pace.
And my winner for this China's sprint race, the first sprint race of many we have this season, I'm going for the Australian Grand Prix winner and pole sitter. I'm going for George Russell in P1. I think the Mercedes, it's hard to bet against George Russell with the pace that he showed last week, so I'm going with George Russell then.
Yep, I completely agree there. I think if George Russell, if you put a bet on him, it'd be like 2-1 because he's just going to be. It's probably the most obvious pick in the world. The pairing of Russell and Mercedes right now is unbeatable in my opinion.
Yeah, same for me. Nothing else to add. George Russell P1.
Yeah, and make that 4 out of 4.
Oh. It is a full house of George Russell wins the sprint race. So, what are we expecting for the sprint race? I'm not sure how many laps it will be, but I think Ferrari will be going for it. Lewis Hamilton, as he did win it last year. Do you think there will be another fight for the win in this race? Let's go to Ruben. What do you think? What are you expecting for this?
Well, I mean, it's a shorter race, so I think it actually could be more exciting because you saw the latter half of the Australian race get quite boring. Obviously, the sprints are a lot shorter, so I think it should be action-packed start to end. But there could be a few interruptions with mechanical failures. It's still the early part of these regulations. But it's a bit like 2022. We had some great battles at the start of them regulations, and then it kind of fell off. So I guess we just enjoy it while we can, but I think it'll be quite good.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to qualifying for the main race. We're just going to do our top three yet again here. So, for my P3 position, I'm going to bring in the first McLaren of the day. I'm going to go for Lando Norris in P3. It was quite, don't know how to use it. It was quite under the radar in Australia. He wasn't really near the front. He was okay. I think he finished P5 in the end, battling Max Verstappen for some of the race. But I think McLaren, they do have some work to do. Oscar Piastri obviously got some work to do after a horrendous start to his season at his home race, where everyone expected him to maybe try and reverse of what he done last year, but it's another failure from his home race. So my P3 is Lando Norris, and hopefully McLaren can try and close the gap to the front two.
Yeah, well, my prediction's pretty boring. My top three are actually a little bit boring. I put Charles Leclerc in P3 simply because in qualifying in Australia, the Ferraris and the Mercedes look a whole world apart compared to the rest of the field, and I think it'll be really difficult for anybody to try and close that gap.
I'm going to go with Kimi Antonelli. Haven't mentioned him yet in any of my predictions. He had good pace and he has to be up there.
Yeah, I've gone for Max Verstappen. Like, I feel like he's quite underrated this season. Like P20 to like P6 in the last race. He's definitely got potential, so he could be up there in the top three.
So for my P2, I'm going for the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. Finished P2 in the race. Probably, I don't know if it's a boring, but I think Charles Leclerc will take P2 and will be fighting for the race win going into the race.
Yeah, so for my P2, I put Antonelli. I think, I've already said, similar to Australia, the Mercedes cars will be unbeatable. And it'll be kind of like a 2014 situation going on there. And I think that, the Mercedes car will be too overpowered for everyone else.
I'm going to go with Charles Leclerc. Bit off the pace last weekend in qualifying. The Ferraris did not look good, but I think he could do something and carry on from his sprint result.
Yeah, this is going to be a big shot probably, but up on P2, George Russell.
Wow.
So I feel like, quality in Australia, he had quite a dominant session, but some other teams could have definitely done some better runs, and the race didn't come easy to him, not at all, so I put him P2.
So, Ruben put George Russell P2, and for P1, as I said about the sprint race, it's very hard to bet against him as the way things are looking. So my pole position for the Chinese Grand Prix is George Russell. And don't really know what more to say. He is in the quickest car and is probably the quickest driver in pace right now. So, yeah, that's it really.
Yeah, I've also went Russell to complete my top three, which is the exact same as the Australian qualifying session. I don't think I can really add much more. He's obviously everyone's favourite, and I think that he will prove them right.
George Russell. Once again, nothing else to add. Yeah.
Next.
Ruben.
Well, obviously made it quite interesting. Pole position, Lewis Hamilton.
Wow.
He's won the Chinese Grand Prix 6 times, and he's got the most successful driver there. So, and obviously this is his only sprint win, only form of being at the top came last year. So he's got a good track record around the track.
So before we go into our race predictions, are we wanting to have a look over our biggest flop and wild cards that we predicted for the Australian Grand Prix, if everyone does remember what they put? I put for my wild card Arvid Lindblad, and he had a fantastic race for his first ever start. He was up to P3 flying at the very start, but I'm sure he's a finish around P8 scoring points in his first ever race as a rookie, so I think I deserve a point for that. So we're going to try and move on and hear everybody's wild card that they had for the Australian Grand Prix.
Yep, so I had Oliver Behrman as my wild card, and I was actually really, really happy about that because maybe he wasn't really involved in the race much, but he made his strategy work. He drove the wheels off the Haas, which I believe is a really good car this year as well, and he finished best of the rest, which is obviously going to be a point for me because it's the best that any of those teams could, realistically finish with the quicker cars ahead.
Well, wild card Nico Hulkenberg. He didn't even start the race.
Oh no!
I don't think much more has to be said.
No.
Well, I also said Behrman, and as just been explained, he had a great weekend and got the maximum potential out of the car. So,
So for my biggest flop of the Australian Grand Prix, I went for a very, very bold shout, and I went for Lewis Hamilton, and he had a very good race for how him and Ferrari. It came P4. He was battling for the win. Well, not the win, but he was battling for it in the first stint of the race. He was battling hard, and a P4 finish is, I think he's very happy with that. So I guess he did not flop. He actually done very well.
Yeah, so my biggest flop was Aston Martin for obvious reasons. Lance Stroll, he finished the race, but he was not classified because he was 15 laps down, which is some kind of record, surely. And Fernando Alonso retired about twice and then came back out and retired again, so not much more to add, to be honest.
Bad weekend, Valtteri Bottas. Yeah, his car broke down, so I will take a point with that. But I do think Cadillac was going to be a tough weekend. But his teammate did outshine him, so I will go and take a point with that one.
yeah, I put as my flop Isaac Hadjar, and I especially put he beat out in Q1. So yeah, that didn't go well. I P3 quality. So yeah, I'm not taking the point there.
So what are you guys thinking? Should we go over our biggest flop and wild card for this week, or should we do that after the race predictions? What are we thinking?
We should do that after the predictions.
After.
Okay, so now we're going to move on. Oh, I've had some interference there, but I think we're okay to move on. So we're moving on now. Moving on to now the Chinese Grand Prix race predictions. So P3, I'm going for Lewis Hamilton. I think Ferrari will be quick around here, and I think Lewis Hamilton will find his way onto the podium.
Whose phone is beeping away? Anyway, P2, I think, going to be
P3.
P3. It's going to be quite a surprise. It's the first, driver that hasn't beaten a Ferrari or Mercedes I've listed all weekend, and I think that it's going to be the one and only Max Verstappen.
Ooh.
I feel like his race pace, his pure speed. I think that he has the potential, obviously, because he drove from 22nd to 6th as well. He knows how to overtake, make up position, and he needs to bounce back after a difficult weekend, and that's something that he tends to do. And I feel like he will get his first podium this race.
I'm going to go with Lewis Hamilton. Yeah, I think he'll do well. That's it.
Yeah, I've gone P3 Kimi Antonelli. Like, he might be in the fastest car, but he's still fairly new to the grid. And I just think, it's only his second Grand Prix here, so I'll put him P3.
So moving on to P2 now. It's not really bold, but P2, I'm going for George Russell. He is not going to win the race. He wins the sprint, but he will not win the race. I think there will be another close battle for the win. I really hope there is, as the start of Australia was really entertaining for the fans. And I don't know if it will peter out like Australia and one driver might pull away, but I think there will be a battle for the win. But I think Russell will just be edged out by someone and will finish P2.
So I put P2 same as in Australia. Yeah, well, not my prediction, but the result. Kimi Antonelli. We saw in Australia at the early parts of the race, he was having it quite difficult, to be honest, because he was being overtaken by Ferraris. He was, falling down the field. And then towards the end of the race, obviously he went back to second, and then he only finished 3 seconds or so off Russell. So he had a great comeback, and was actually quicker than Russell in a few laps of the race towards the end, and clawed back some time. So that's why I put him in second, because I do think that despite his young age, he is a really good driver. He's really quick and reliable now, and he's learnt a lot from his first season in F1. So I'll put him second. I think it's going to be another Mercedes one too.
P2 Shalkar, double Ferrari podium. I really hope they can pull this one off. China maybe hasn't been the best track the last few years. I feel like it's one you get your hopes up for, being a Ferrari fan, and then they smash it on the ground like they do with everything. But I think double podium's possible, and Leclerc's going to edge out Hamilton.
Yeah, P2, I said the same as Lewis said. From George Russell, right? So I think it will be a really close battle with the person I put at P1, but I think he won't quite edge this person out.
So my winner for China to just beat George Russell, I'm going for Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. I think Ferrari will win this race, and I think this might push on for hopefully an amazing championship battle we get to see this season. I think Leclerc and Russell will be bound out this race from start to finish, but I think Leclerc will just edge it. It'll be very close, but I think Leclerc will win this race.
Yeah, well, I'm very sorry to everyone, but I'm putting the exact same top three apart from Verstappen as Australia. I think there's only going to be one podium change, and that is Verstappen instead of Charles Leclerc. And Russell will be the race winner again. I feel like the Mercedes we've seen in Australia, it's way too quick for the rest of the field. I feel like a lot of people have to be a bit optimistic to put anyone else up there, but you never know, anything can happen. But with the reliability, etc., I still think that the greatest odds are for Russell and Mercedes to win this Grand Prix. I think that's exactly what's going to happen again. It could be a little bit of a boring start, but I do think the race will still be entertaining, and there could be reliability threats for the field.
Yeah, as Jack said, you have to be optimistic. I'm a Ferrari fan, so I'm not very optimistic. I'm going to go with P1 George Russell. Yeah, way too fast. That Mercedes at the moment has just got something that the other cars don't.
Yeah, and I've gone P1. Max Verstappen. I mean, he has some incredible pace in Australia, and hopefully nothing goes terribly wrong for him. And he can, if he can go up 14 places in one race, surely he's got good potential for at least a podium, if not a win. That's why I put him P1.
Well, my head was in my hands last week after I said Max Verstappen to win the Australian Grand Prix, and he crashed out in Q1 and had to start at P22. He did make a great comeback to P6, but maybe I have a curse on it, so hopefully Leclerc does not crash out in Q1. It might be the Steve-O curse. Whoever says P1 does not finish P1. But now we're going to move on to our biggest flop and wild card, and I think we're going to start with Ruben here. You can start us off.
Well, starting off with my wild card, I've gone Kajar. Obviously, I put him into a flop last week in Australia, so I think he deserves a bit of redemption, and he has got great pace. He's finally broken this record second driver curse. But for my flop, I have gone for the entire Audi team, because obviously Audi scored 4 points in the first race thanks to Bortoletto. But I think this weekend they're going to be lurking around in the midfield, not doing too much.
Robbo?
I am going to go with, for my wild card, I went with Hulkenberg last week. I'm going to go with the other Audi and totally knock Ruben's thoughts out the water and go with Gabriel Bortoletto. He looks fast, 4 points for Audi on debut. I mean, what else can you say? That is a great start for the team. I think Bortoletto can keep that going at a track he struggled at last season, but a track he can shine at this season. The bad weekend, though, is going to be Aston Martin. 15 laps down, as Jack said, must be a record that. Not the best result, but I think it's going to continue to China, and it's going to be a horrible weekend for them.
Well, hopping aboard this Brabham train, I've also went for Bortoletto as my best driver outside the top 4 teams. I feel like we saw, as Rob brilliantly summed it up there, with real class. We saw in Australia, Bortoletto, was rapid basically. He was dictating the midfield like you do in football or something. And, he was just, in the end, great haul of points there for Audi. The new team coming into F1, points in their debut, looking really fast as well, I might add, because, they've got a unique design to their car and it's paying off, and I feel like he'll take that into China, and obviously with Hulkenberg not even starting the Grand Prix, maybe a little bit of technical reliability to fix, but hopefully that will all go well and he'll finish in a good position again. Anyway, for my police flop, I went for Williams. Nowhere to be seen in Australia. James Vowles on and on and on for years about them being good in 2026. Wait until 2026. We've waited and we've seen nothing. They're at the back. They're the 9th quickest team on the grid. They're absolutely nowhere, and I feel like they'll have made little progress.
So for my wildcard prediction, I think we all are beating on Ruben's prediction of Audi being quite boring. I'm going for Nico Hulkenberg as my wildcard, as he was unable to start the Australian Grand Prix, as we have mentioned earlier on in this podcast, and I think now he's got his chance. Hopefully, we'll be able to start this race, and he will show. I think both Audi, maybe could have went as Audi as my wildcard, but I think both Audi cars will be running quite high, maybe in the points. But I think Nico Hulkenberg will be able to show his true pace and will score a few points, maybe even the sprint, make it to Q3 and maybe score points in the race. But for my biggest flop, I'm going to go for McLaren. I know I put Norris in my top 3 for qualifying, but I think in the race they will have some sort of reliability problem. I think Piastri's season will go from bad to worse. I think he'll really struggle. I don't know. I just see it. I don't know. I've not got a reason why, but I have a feeling McLaren will struggle this race. So they are my biggest flop. And that's us done for all our predictions. I think we're going to move over to Robbo now for Robbo's notebook.
Well, we've got a segment now. And what are we going to do with that? We're going to fill it with the latest F1 news. Now, the biggest news of the week, not concerning Australia, is replacements for Bahrain in Saudi Arabia. We thought we'd get some. We're not going to get any because the FIA have said they would not replace it, despite the fact there's rumours that Portimao and Imola are on standby as well as Melbourne, strangely enough. But we will not go there. Verstappen is going to compete in the 24 hours in Nürburgring, which he's done a bit of last season, but he's back at it again. In the GT cars, he seemed to enjoy his few outings, and he's going back to that. Norris, quote says, McLaren has to improve a lot, and they do, because they are not fast, maybe proving the fact that they are the 4th best team on the grid despite their good qualifying results. Going back to Australia though, and going on to this week, I know I said Aston would flop, but can they get it right? Can they crack the code? Fernando Alonso was P10 for a little bit, but then he bottled it, which wasn't the best, and they finished 15 laps down. But can the Astons get it right? Will they get something right with the sprint? It's not 25 laps, they won't get nerve damage. And yeah, I think that's it for this week's Robbo Notebook.
So thank you very much for that valuable information, Robbo. I think Ruben now has some motorsport roundup he would like to add.
You say some. There is absolutely loads going on in the UK. Seeing it's just a week of testing, we're counting down to the British Truck Racing Championships. Just 4 weeks to go for that. 24 days now. 6 weeks till BTCC, the UK's biggest series. And some BTCC news. We've got 2 more Corollas confirmed in the championship with Josh Cook and James Dorn, a mix of experience and a newbie. And today at Snetterton, there's been lots of testing going on. And Rainford and Darrell DeLeon, the 2 drivers at BMW last year, have stayed, it looks like, with a 3rd mystery driver in BMW. But yeah, today's also been testing for GB3, GB4 and British GT. But the track Snetterton, where all the testing's been going on, has received some major upgrades, improvements to the curves. They've been flattened out, so it should make some really, really good racing. So racing coming up, real racing coming up this week. At Donington Park, we have got the first event there of the year, the Duke Rallies, and that should be very, very exciting. And Snetterton has got some proper racing on track with the MSVR season starter with Master track day event and a 3-hour Ford KA race. And that'll be very, very exciting. Some unfortunate news, so in the BTCC, a couple bits of bad news. First of all, a very well-known driver for his aggression and excitement to the championship, Senna Proctor, will not be racing full-time in 2026 as he steps down to reserve driver for Napa Racing UK. And it's all because of budget reasons, which is a real shame to see. And finally, a bit of huge bad news, because after the primary sponsor for Unlimited Motorsport has pulled out, meaning that the team itself has pulled out of the championship, and the team obviously ran Nicholas Hamilton's car, so there are fears that Nick Hamilton will be out of the BTCC.
So thank you very much, Ruben, for some very valuable information on motorsport all around the UK. Jack, are you feeling a little bit left out? Are you wanting to add? Have you got anything to add at all?
Well, I can quickly sum up the F3 race. It was the sprint race. I watched it live. I think it was like 12 a.m. midnight. It was crazy. There was a huge crash in the sprint race involving James Wharton in the Prema as well as Lewis Sharp, both Prema teammates, both from Oceania as well, where the race was held. So technically, one of them was from Sharp was from New Zealand, so it's technically like his home race as well. It's the closest track to where he was born and raised. So it's a real shame for both of them to go. It was a huge crash. It was turn 5, flat out corner, probably my favourite corner on the track, and they made contact after a really aggressive fight. And some could argue pretty hard fair racing, and then into the corner, one of them on the inside and the other one on the outside, and you can only tell what's going to happen there. They crashed into each other, red flag, race is cancelled, and Bruno Del Pino won eventually. And then the feature race was won by Ugo Ugochukwu from, I believe it was second on the grid.
So we've had a lot of information given to us there. So I've got thanks everyone for the support that we've had on our first couple of videos on this new channel, the shorts, and the last podcast. I think it got about around 50 views. So if you are watching this and you want to comment down your predictions, your biggest flop, your wild card, and your thoughts on the Australian Grand Prix, we also have an F1 Fantasy League if anybody wants to join. The code will be in the description. And we also have an F1 24 Racing League, MFRL. If you ever want to take part in that, just let us know. Comment down below. The Discord will be in the description. And thank you everybody for watching this episode of the F5 Studios podcast. And we'll see you next time. Goodbye.